Good afternoon. Welcome to We Believe Digital News Break. We Believe Digital Studios here in Jackson, Mississippi, where it's about 88 degrees, heading for 92 or 93 today. No rain in sight for today or tomorrow. But maybe Sunday and Monday, maybe a little bit of rain. But this heat wave continues. We're going to talk about that a little bit later on in the show. But so glad you're joining us, and happy to have you in the chat. Or our call-in number is 1-800-492-5186, and happy to have you call in as well. So we'll get started on at the local level today. For the last 2 days, there's been a status hearing going on down at the U.S. District Court. Judge Henry Wingate got all the concerned parties together, talking about people have been making complaints about the transparency from the Jackson Water Organization, the third party that's fixing the water system here in Jackson. So the head of it, a guy by the name of Ted Hennepin, he heard feedback from community leaders, city employees, contractors, council people, and residents about his lack of transparency. So, and he indicated that he was glad to get the feedback. He said he felt like there was a difference between communication and transparency, but he promised to do better at it. So we'll see how that goes. So far, since February, what they've accomplished, JXN Water, what they've accomplished is this, according to what they shared yesterday. 200 water leaks repaired since February, 90 valves closed, signed a contract to use satellite imaging to discover leaks in our water system, and contracted with a private company to run the call center. Didn't go over well with people because it's over in Pearl or Flowood or something like that. But also, since they started, they now are fully staffed at both water treatment plants, and that's been a very long time since that has happened. So that's some good news there. And in a related story, 2 days ago, the Jackson City Council voted, after 40 minutes in closed-door discussion, voted 5-2 to have the city's sewer system be under the control of that same third-party administrator. So now that'll go to Judge Wingate, and he'll have to decide on that. But certainly seems likely that will happen. Another issue going on here in Hinds County, Attorney General Lynn Fitch requested the Mississippi Supreme Court reverse the conviction of Anthony Fox, a former Jackson police officer sentenced in the death of George Robinson in 2019. He was found guilty in August of last year of culpable negligence manslaughter, and he was sentenced to 5 years in prison that same month. So Jody Owens, the district attorney for Hinds County, really pushing back on that. In a press release, Owens called the Attorney General's decision political, not based on any substantive law, later saying that her actions were an overreach. So very curious why, when so much is put into the prosecution of someone in a serious matter like that, all of a sudden she arbitrarily asked the Supreme Court to reverse the decision. So they have not ruled on that yet, but that's coming before them. Tomorrow night, Black Rodeo back in town. Last year it was in the middle of June, I want to say the 15th of June, and here it is 15th of July this year, and that probably has something to do with the change in vendor. it's different folks operating the Black Rodeo this year, but at the Coliseum tomorrow night, starting at 7:30. As we go back out on a broader view of Mississippi, still we have no Republican-led hearings on the TANF scandal, where under a Republican-led administration, nearly $100 million intended for the poorest Mississippians was funneled away to pet projects. And just as sad as it could be, but none of the Republican heads of our state are interested in talking about that. They don't want to have any hearings on that. They just want to let the legal process proceed. Very peculiar. Or is it? So let's see. We got Mr. Williams in the chat. How we doing, Mr. Williams? What concerns me about city politicians want transparency from him, but turned around and voted to put him. Yeah. That's interesting how all that works. And we're still waiting for the transparency from the council too on how much taxpayer money they spent trying to keep waste management in business, hauling our trash instead of letting a black contractor from New Orleans, Richard's Disposal, pick up our trash. Man, oh man. I bet you it's up in the vicinity of $500,000 they spent on that. Another story going on in Mississippi, the U.S. Justice Department filed a complaint Wednesday saying that this new Mississippi law, HB 1020, that we've talked about so many times, discriminates against residents of the majority black Hinds County, which includes the capital city of Jackson, by mandating appointment of prosecutors and special judges. So, U.S. Justice Department signing on to this lawsuit. And we know the story already. We elect our judges in this state. The new law creates a separate court system in part of Jackson, the majority white part of Jackson, with prosecutors appointed by the Mississippi Attorney General and a judge by the Mississippi Supreme Court Chief Justice. Also authorizes Chief Justice to appoint 4 new special circuit court judges to work alongside 4 other elected judges in Hinds County. They say Justice Department says the law discriminates against people based on race, specifically black residents, by shifting authority of the county's justice system to new officials who are not democratically accountable. That story comes through USA Today. Amazon has been hitting it, pouring a lot of money into Mississippi. Their newest project in Mississippi is a Delta wind farm. 184.5 megawatt project under construction in Tunica, which will be the first utility-scale wind farm in the state. This new project brings Amazon to 6 renewable energy projects in Mississippi, including 5 solar farms. Once operational, the 6 projects are expected to generate more than 1,850 gigawatt hours of clean energy, the equivalent of electricity needed to power 174,600 homes. So that is just wild. That comes from Fox 10 News over in Mobile. Hot off the press early this morning, incumbent Republican Lieutenant Governor Delbert Hosemann crying foul over a flyer that he says was disseminated by his opponent, Chris McDaniel, that purported to show Hosemann was endorsed by Black Lives Matter. And this from a Mississippi Today article first thing this morning. And sure enough, that state senator from from New Albany, Mississippi, she was in on it. She posted the same flyer on her Facebook page, but then took it down a little later. The Mississippi Link has a story this week You can see the Mississippi Link online. The e-edition, just go to the MississippiLink.com, has a story strongly calling out this state senator, Kathy Chisholm, who's trying to stir the pot about bringing the Confederate flag back. Lady by the name of Iris Stacker, CEO of Delta Health Systems in Greenville, spoke at a Tuesday campaign event for Democrat Brandon Presley and said if the federal government covered more people, then the local economy would be more robust. Of course, talking about the expansion of Medicaid and how the current governor is adamantly against that. And she says, we don't understand why Tate Reeves doesn't understand why he needs a healthy workforce. So this is going to be an issue, certainly, with the upcoming elections. You know, hospitals across the state slashing their staffs. There's not enough money to go around. A big part of that is these hospitals having to pay for uncompensated care, whereas, you know, if we did expand Medicaid here in Mississippi, that not only would that bring in $1 billion more each year to the state coffers, and 90% of the cost of the expansion is paid by the federal government, so the state would be on the hook for 10% of the expansion. But it would compensate the hospitals for all the care they provide to people that don't have any means to pay or any insurance. This is a list. I think this is a partial list, but North Mississippi Health Services in Tupelo announced on Tuesday was laying off employees, cutting hours, reassigning folks to different jobs. Ochsner Health, which operates several facilities in Mississippi, announced in May it was cutting hundreds of jobs. Memorial Hospital in Gulfport announced layoffs just days before the Ochsner announcement. In June, St. Dominic Hospital in Jackson announced cutting 5.5% of its workforce and ending its behavioral health program. KPC Promise had leased a Merit Health hospital in Vicksburg, and they had to close last month. Delta Health, which is led by this lady Stacker that's speaking out against the governor, last year closed its NICU unit, leaving the Delta region one of the most impoverished areas in the nation without a neonatal center. So we're going to be hearing so much more about health care and our lack of it. And of course, the health care that we have in Mississippi is ranked by U.S. News and World Report as last in the country. Last. Got some news from the Choctaw, the Mississippi Band of Choctaw Indians yesterday. Nalani Luz Maria Thompson was chosen as the 2023-24 Choctaw Indian Princess. Huge turnout. They have their annual fair going on now. She was also selected by her fellow contestants as Miss Congeniality. Thompson will now, now serve as an ambassador for the Choctaw people. The Mississippi Band of Choctaw said Thompson is 16-year-old daughter of Desmond and Kelly Jones. She's from the Pearl River community. She'll be a senior at Neshoba Central High School in the fall. So congratulations, Princess Nalani Luz Maria Thompson. So just getting ready to bow out for this first segment, take a short break, let you see some commercials, and then we'll be right back with you shortly.
Looking for the hottest content in the city of Jackson and surrounding areas? Check out WeBelieveDigital.com. Also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. We Believe Digital Podcast is here for all your podcasting needs.
The Mississippi Link is an African-American female-owned newspaper with a trusted voice that is highly respected throughout the city, state, and nation. Our motto, Keepers of the Knowledge for People Who Speak the Truth, since 1993. Link significantly influences the thoughts, attitudes, and buying decisions of its readers. Call us at 601-368-8481 for your advertising needs. If you would like to receive a newspaper in the mail each week, our annual subscription is only $52 per year. That is only $1 per week for you to stay informed regarding many stories that you can only get in the Mississippi Link. Sign up today at themississippiLink.com and click on Home Delivery.
And welcome back to We Believe Digital Newsbreak. So glad you're joining us today. Here we are, TGIF. Moving into the national and global stories for the day. Hollywood shutting down. Got a chunk of information on this. Actors hitting the picket lines this morning in Hollywood, their first strike against film and TV production since 1980, and the nation's largest strike since 1997. 160,000 members of the Screen Actors Guild and AFTRA, the union representing everyone from A-list stars to struggling actors working other jobs while awaiting their first break in the industry. The union argues that rapid changes in the industry in recent years with the rise of streaming services have made it impossible for many, if not most of the members, to earn a living acting. This is the largest number of union members to be on strike since 180,000 Teamsters walked out on UPS in 1997. But it might not be the largest for long. The Teamsters, who have 340,000 members at UPS, are threatening to strike the parcel delivery giant on August 1st if they don't have a new contract. So that's just 2 weeks away. The actors also joined more than 11,000 members of the Writers Guild of America, who have been on strike against the same studios and streaming services since May 2nd. That union is striking over many of the same issues, but also this whole concept of using AI to do a lot of the writing, which is going to put these writers out of work. And a lot of concern about the use of AI. I'm not exactly sure how that's being driven so hard, but still so many questions about that. An already dangerous weeks-long heat wave only worsens this weekend as the heat dome intensifies and reaches peak strength over parts of the western United States. The heat dome is so formidable, the National Weather Service in Phoenix called it one of the strongest high-pressure system this region has ever seen. Around 100 heat records could fall today through the weekend as it intensifies, piling on to more than 1,000 high-temperature records broken in the United States since the month of June. More than 90 million people under the heat alerts after the heat dome expanded into places like California, which is now experiencing its first extreme heat wave of the year. And, in Texas, been unbearable. Louisiana, we've had our heat here in Mississippi, but not at the same levels. Arizona, New Mexico, Phoenix. I want to say it's Phoenix. 10 straight days of 114 degree heat. Just phenomenal heat going on out there. So, but we got to be mindful of it here too. We don't have quite as extreme as they have, but this is some dangerous stuff, and we need to stay covered and stay hydrated and take frequent breaks and limit our outside time as much as possible, and certainly pray for those that don't have that ability to get in out of the heat, and pray for their strength and making smart decisions so they stay as healthy as possible. Robert Bowers. Robert Bowers was the shooter that walked into that Pittsburgh Tree of Life synagogue in 2018 and killed 11 worshipers. He's 50 years old, found guilty on June 16th of all 63 charges against him, killing 11, wounding 6 others. The deadliest attack on Jewish people in the U.S. 22 of those counts were capital offenses. And this thing, this thing has to go to the jury. Had to sentencing is just coming out, and the jury has said, even though he was found guilty back in June, the sentencing has been being talked about, and the jury has indicated that he should be found eligible for the death penalty or life in prison. So we'll see how that works out for this Robert Bowers. Lastly, on the national front, we have this defense bill it's a reconciled bill that comes through every single year. And last night, late at night, the House voted some 41 amendments to the bill. Typically a bipartisan support, but they went way over this time. The bill was passed largely on a party line vote of 219 to 210 in the House. 4 Democrats crossed over, 4 Republicans crossed over. The addition of amendments pushed by conservative hardliners related to abortion policies, transgender health, as well as targeting diversity, equity, and inclusion programs. It got the Democrats infuriated and led to some pushback from moderate Republicans. Sets up a clash, with the Senate. Also, if you'd like to learn more about DEI, in this week's issue of the Mississippi Link, which again you can subscribe to, we'd be happy to get it sent to you each month, or you can view it online at themississippilink.com. There's a substantial story this week about DEI and why it's under attack. And here you have the evidence of it definitely being under attack. Just have 4 more little news clips here for you at the global level, kind of diverse stories. Lots of crowds protesting across the state of Israel. 27 consecutive weeks of demonstrations against the government's judicial overhaul, where some parties over there are seeking to have, the executive be able to override the essentially their version of the Supreme Court. So people are in the streets. Organizers say protesters are out in force. They estimate 365,000 people have come out in cities around the country, with 180,000 protesters in the streets of central Tel Aviv. Among the largest protests in their history so far, but 27 weeks of protesting. People feel as if their rights are, being infringed, and so one of the things that they choose to do is protest. I mean, does that sound familiar for us here in Jackson? North Korea fired what is said to be yesterday a solid-fueled intercontinental ballistic missile. The day before yesterday. The launch follows several other recent tests of their ICBMs, which have raised alarm among adversaries as the isolated authoritarian nation ramps up its effort to develop weapons capable of potentially striking major United States cities. That's a story from CNN. Apparently, the missile went up. It was in flight for about 74 minutes. and that was reported out by the Japan's defense ministry that keeps a very good track of all that. A Russian Navy training ship docked in Havana yesterday. It's on a 4-day visit. It's the first official visit by a Russian naval vessel to Cuba in years, sending another sign of the reforging of the relationship between the two Cold War allies. And that's, since the collapse of the Soviet Union nearly brought down the Cuban economy with it. So people are getting a chance to tour the ship and so forth, and we got to remember that the closest tip of Cuba is 93 miles from the U.S. mainland. The final story for today, in February 2024, so this coming February, the Eastern and Oriental Express. Now, just in case you're planning some travel, the Eastern and Oriental Express, a Belmond train, will launch 2 seasonal return trip journeys out of Singapore that take in the landscapes of its northern neighbor, Malaysia. These routes mark the brand's official return to Southeast Asia after being forced to cease operations during COVID. So these trips, they're going to be 4-day, 3-night trips on these amazing luxury trains, the likes you just never see anything like it. Take a guess now, 4 days and 3 nights, $3,410 per person, all inclusive. So you get your train ride, you get your sleeping car, you get your meals, you get your beverages, you get your sightseeing, you get the whole ball of wax. $3,410 per person. How about that? Well, that's all we have for today. We thank you so much for joining in. We Believe Digital has several shows lined up later this afternoon and into this evening, and we'll be happy to have you check out those shows. We've got some new programming coming to the platform. We've got some promotions out there, so please like the programming on your devices. Click on the notification so you get known. Share stars whenever you can. And we're trying to really shift from a tiny podcast studio to a media corporation, and we can't do that without your help. So we need you for that. So thank you so much. As always, glad to have you. Hope you have a great weekend. Take good care of yourselves and those around you. We'll see you back for this show next Wednesday at 12 noon.